Everyone, I'd like to call the Advisory Committee on Accessibility and Inclusiveness meeting for Wednesday, September 11th to order. Under introduction of late items, we don't have anything today, so if I could have a motion for the adoption of the agenda, please. Moved by Richard, seconded by Sean. All in favor? Thank you very much. And we have one set of minutes from our last meeting on July 10th. Unless anyone would like to make any corrections, I'll take a motion for the adoption of those minutes. Moved by Sean, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. All in favor?
I can't hear anything.
Jacqueline can't hear, it looks like.
Okay, sorry. Another.
Can our online members now hear?
I can hear.
Okay, could you?
I can hear.
And you couldn't hear previously?
We're good. We
Okay.
found the issue. We're good.
Sorry about that. So you haven't really missed anything other than adopting the agenda and the minutes from last week. Did anyone have anything to add on those items? No? Okay, great.
Not for me.
Thank you. So moving into the chair's report, we have a new committee member that I'm really happy to introduce to you today. Sahara Roden is joining us. Sahara, if you want to turn your mic on and say hello and maybe just a brief introduction to yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sahara Roden. I work for Nanaimo Smith Public Schools in Learning Services, and I am currently on our Safe Schools Committee with the district as well, and our Student Voice Committee. I'm really excited to be a part of this. I'm currently in school also for my accessibility and equity, diversity, inclusion diploma, so excited to learn and sit and listen.
Awesome.
So we'll just go around the table and have everyone say your names so that we can introduce ourselves to our new member. Tammy, starting with you.
Hi. Hi, I'm Tammy Hirasawa. I'm a physiotherapist with the Child Development Center.
Hi, I'm Sean Enns. I'm an Integrated Services Manager with Nanaimo Association for Community Living.
Richard?
You, Richard.
Oh, Aaron. Richard Harlow.
If you could use your mic,
Oh.
that would be great.
Richard Harlow. I work with Canadian National Institute of the Blind and Bonaventure Support Services.
Cheryl Armstrong, City Councilor.
Nicole Sugiyama. I am an occupational therapist at the Child Development Center and the school district.
Thank you. And we have lots of great staff with us today. And of course, yes, we'll go to Zoom first. Linda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Linda Dirksen, and I work in accessibility at VIU.
Jocelyn?
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Maffin. I'm a resident. I use a wheelchair full time, and I work for Spinal Cord Injury BC.
Sarah?
Hi there. I'm Sarah Pump. I'm the Executive Director of Poverty Advocacy in Nanaimo, and I also use mobility aids.
And last but not least, we have Bay online.
Hello, I'm Bay Kinraid. I'm a sociology student at VIU and a person with disabilities.
And Alexandria is online. Sorry, I don't see you in my tiles right now, but I know you're there. Oh, you're the phone number. Hey, Alexandria.
Hi, I'm Alexandria Stewart, and I am a family member and also the chair of the board of directors at Clay Tree Society.
Thank you so much. So we've got a powerhouse team on the committee and then a great team of staff supporting us as well. Karen Robertson is our deputy corporate officer. So Karen's a main point of contact for the committee, and maybe you can talk about how the Legislative Services supports the committee so that Sahara knows with communicating agenda items, etc.
Okay, so Sarah, we spoke on the phone and got introduced, but basically Legislative Services is kind of like the vetting group and the conduit to the committee for putting items on the agenda. If there is something that you do want to bring up in the future, you would just do so through the chairs, and then also there's a Legislative Services inbox, and that can be used, and we can distribute material on your behalf as a committee and also for agenda items. And I maybe just want to introduce Nikki because there's a bit of a transition here. Nikki here is my replacement for the full-time position as Deputy Corporate Officer, but I still will be here at the city doing special projects and until at least the end of the year, support to this committee. So you can have more than one deputy corporate officer. You just have to be appointed as one in order to cover for committees legislatively. But so that's why we both have our name tags here. But then I'll turn it over maybe to Nikki to introduce herself because you might be seeing her in the future too.
Thank you, Karen, and hello, everybody. It's lovely to be here today and to get to meet all the committee members. Nicolina Vracker. I've come to City of Nanaimo from the mainland, so really excited and looking forward to working with everyone here and looking forward to supporting the important work that you all are doing.
Thank you so much. We've got lots of other great staff in the room that I think we will meet during the presentations themselves. So I'm going to move into the next item, which is council communications, an update on the Westwood Lake Beach accessibility upgrades and washroom upgrades. Karen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you're aware, at the July 22nd regular council meeting, council did endorse the committee's recommendation here to have an additional accessibility washroom. The recommendation was considered by council formally on July 29th, so I am happy to report that council did support converting one additional accessible washroom, so there'll be a total of 2. So,
yeah, thanks everyone. And I do think that's worthy of a little round of applause and really credit to the committee's work on that. That's a $100,000 win for this committee and a huge win for the community going forward for the future of this project and just to make sure that the work that we're doing there serves the needs of all residents. So really kudos to you guys for that. Thank you so much. Moving into presentations now, we have a presentation on the Maffeo Sutton Park amenity building. And this is going to be introduced by Michael Lonsdale, our Senior Project Manager. Michael, thanks so much for being here today. And you helped us through the Westwood Lake project, so great to see you back.
Yeah, thank you very much for the kind introduction. And yeah, we've just a little bit off topic, but back on Westwood Lake. Really glad to get that feedback from the committee and to get the endorsement from council to be able to implement that. And really glad that we can continue to make that project more and more responsive to the needs for our community. So thank you very much again for that feedback. Today, I'm here to speak with you about the Maffeo Sutton Park amenity building. This project is something that is in the very early stages of project planning. So this is coming to you similar to how the Westwood project first came to this committee, which was about a year and a half ago or so, where we're just starting out with the planning and we'd like to run by kind of the high level thoughts and plans that we have for this project with you and hear from you what elements you're seeing that you maybe want to have some more discussion on, that might be a concern, that might be a real great source of joy, all of that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do is do a real high level overview of what this project is and what we're trying to accomplish through it, and then at the end have some questions and answers if there's anything specific that you want to discuss. But of course, along the way, if there's anything that particularly piques your interest, just put your hand up, let me know, and I'm happy to get into things as we go.
And I will watch for hands for our members who are on Zoom as well, and I can start a speakers list. So if you do want to speak, you can just give me a little wave and I'll put you on the list and call on you.
Go, is this on? Oh, there we go. Here we go. So, as I said, this project is the Maffeo Sutton Park amenity building, and I'm assuming most folks are familiar with Maffeo Sutton Park. So to start with, what do we have planned for this? Well, it is a new washroom building with the following preliminary configuration, which would be 2 accessible and universal washrooms, 8 universal washrooms, and a separate gendered washroom space that would be open during large events when we've got very large crowds coming through and we need to be able to accommodate those crowds as best as we can. Public art is a part of this new building that we're planning on integrating in from the very inception of the design. And ground and park improvements are not part of this project. So this project is really focused on the building itself and kind of a narrow swath around it where we are integrating it into the existing park space. But we're not looking at doing things like playground improvements or substantial tree planting groves or things like that as part of the project. We're really focused on the building itself. What are the goals for this project? Well, first and foremost, we are looking to establish an inclusive and accessible washroom space, additional washrooms that are cost-effective for use during events. We want to establish a distinctive and memorial building. This is one of Nanaimo's premier parks. It is an absolute destination and a gem in our area, and we want to make sure that the space that is being taken up by this washroom is, the washroom's worthy of being in this area. It needs to be a high-quality public amenity. That's the big thing that we're stressing here. There's a lot of operational pressures on the park that our teams work with every day, but the focus of this project is for the community and for the public to make sure it's a high-quality public amenity. So where in the park is this going to go, which is a good question. So this is planned to go right now kind of near the Lions Pavilion. So that would have it close to walking trails. It would be close to the performance spaces. It would be near the parking lot. It'd be near the existing washroom building. And there'd be areas around there that would have nice seating and nice shade, fairly proximal to the building. This will help support the general park use. It'll help support folks that are using the trails, and it'll help support the large events that we host within the park. When is it all happening? So right now, we have been working on a needs assessment, which we started up in June of this year. The idea behind doing that is to help us determine what needs need to be met as part of this project, to define that and help us ensure that we are going back to those as we face design challenges and questions along the way. Basically establishing a watermark of, this is what we need to achieve here, and then we'll work with the design to get through that. Coming up, once we're following that, probably later this month, we'll be starting into design. That's where we're going to be making the detailed decisions about implementing the design guidelines that we're coming up with right now, and that this conversation that we're having is going to be influencing. Following that, we'll be going into construction hopefully next year. That's preliminary. There's a lot of work that we need to do between now and then. We need to get it all permitted, all of that kind of fun stuff. But what we're working to do is to try and get into construction in 2025. So that brings me to our last slide here, which really is a question. What accessible and inclusive elements are important to you all for us to include as a part of this? Obviously, your input is extremely important, and we really want to know what you think. We're going to do our best to include your suggestions into the detailed design. As with anything, like we had discussed with Westwood, we're working within a budget envelope, and we need to balance different demands and different desires for the space. But the desires that you folks have and the folks in the community that you're representing have are really important to make sure that we are getting that representation within this project. So if there's any questions or input that you'd like to provide or discussion you'd like to have, I'm here and I'm happy to chat.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm sure we do have some feedback to share. That is going to be started off by Sean, and then I'll go to Nicole.
Yeah, so my questions. Okay, so is this going to replace the existing washrooms eventually?
That's a good way of putting it. It will eventually replace the existing washrooms. As part of the work that we're doing right now, we're evaluating on, do we want to do some renovations to those existing washrooms and keep them going? Should that get converted into more operational space? Does it make sense to hold on to them at all? Really, when this is done, you're going to Maffeo Sutton Park and you say, hey, I need to go use a restroom. This is the space that you're going to think of and that you're going to want to go to.
Okay. So that's my first question. My second question, can you explain the separate gendered washroom spaces to be open during large events and the purpose and values behind those as opposed to universal washrooms?
Absolutely. So when we have large events in the park, in order to support those events, we're bringing in quite a few porta potties to, offset the use during that kind of an event. For your day-to-day stuff, if you were to head down to the park today, it would be those ungendered spaces that you would go and be able to use. In order to make the most of the funding that we have available, the kind of high use ones that you're asking about are going to be significantly smaller. They're not going to be as nice as the ones that we would use day to day. And it would just be to get that high throughput so that we've got, a bunch of urinals for folks that want to use a urinal available for them, small stalls for folks that need to sit or use a toilet in that private space available for them. But the intent would for those to really just be used to offset the number of porta potties we need to bring in during those big events.
Will they be accessible porta potties? That's a consideration, I suppose, is that if we're going to bring in porta potties for large events, making sure they're accessible porta potties increases the number of individuals because we assume that there's a number of people probably coming to Maffeo Sutton Park and your usage numbers or the design is roughly based on that. Mm-hmm. But then more people with accessibility needs are going to come during large events.
Yep, and that's absolutely a fair question. So that is a consideration we would take in. With respect to the porta potties specifically, it's not something I can speak to as managing the project, but just wave me off if I'm wrong here. But I fully expect that there are a number of accessible porta potties being brought in for those big events, as well as kind of the smaller kind of construction grade porta potties that are brought in as well.
And my last question is, well, a question and then I guess just a comment based on some recent feedback I've gotten outside of this committee. So the comment is to consider entry into the space as part of the space. So we can build all the accessible spaces in the world, but also the pathways for people with mobility and accessibility needs to get into those spaces from wherever they are at the park and to get out of those spaces in ways that make sense. So I understand that grounds and park improvements are not part of the project and that there's probably a small swath of land. I would consider extending out that swath to ensure that however people arrive at that space is comfortable for whatever their mobility needs are. And the other thing that I heard so the provincial government just released their accessibility draft standards for service delivery. Part of the feedback that we're hearing from people is whatever you think you need, do more. Mm-hmm. So this is feedback that was relevant in terms of the Westwood Lake washrooms, where the initial plan was to do one, and then we came back and said 2. If you think you need 2 universally accessible washrooms, you probably need 3. So considering as you're going through that whatever your use case is, it's based on the fact that maybe the space, maybe there's limited accessibility already and we want to increase accessibility overall. So if it's possible to think bigger than whatever your usage needs are, probably you need more than whatever you're thinking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's great feedback. The design team that's working on this, the architects and landscape architects and whatnot, are the same folks that worked on Westwood with us as well. And so we were taking some of those lessons learned from our work with the committee this summer and applying it to this as well and bringing that number up proactively now of, the numbers are telling us 1 is fine. Let's do more so that we know that we're covered off so that everybody's welcome here and nobody's showing up and feeling like they're unwelcome or that it's a surprise that they're there.
Nicole.
So jumping off from that point, with those ones for events, will any of them be like a stall like we would have in the current washrooms, like a bigger, not a universally accessible washroom necessarily where the sink and everything is in one room, but would there be stalls that are wheelchair, like with the turning radius for a wheelchair and a walker and things like that?
Yeah, and it's a great question. So with those kind of, we'll just call it a surge event where a lot of people are showing up. It's a lot of people from all walks of life that are showing up. We're not expecting everybody showing up to want to use a non-accessible washroom. And so that would be a part of the planning for that as well.
Okay. And then as far as input, I know that when we looked at the Westwood Lake plans, there was a question about lifts and it wasn't in the budget, but that would be a really more than a nice to have. I think that what we don't have in the city, and it restricts things like where day camps can go, and it restricts things like which field trips a a school can go on is the more places we can have overhead lifts, the more places that children and adults who cannot be physically moved onto a toilet can go for an extended period of time. So also to then later hopefully get to access things like that wonderful trail system that's being extended to be able to use other forms of mobility than their wheelchairs. So an overhead lift like we have in our pools would be ideal in at least one of those accessible spaces.
Okay, yeah, that's a great piece of feedback. If I can maybe ask a question and follow up to that, please. So we had planned to put in a kind of raisable adult change table as well in one of the accessible and universal washrooms. Would the committee think it would be best to include a lift and the table in the same washroom? Or if we're having two, to split them out between the two? In the same one?
In the same washroom.
Fabulous.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good points.
Thank you. Next up, I'm going to go online to Jocelyn.
Hi, the previous person asked part of my question. I was wondering whether any of the full-time, always available washrooms were going to be a changing places equivalent washroom, which would be would have a height adjustable adult size change table, and I think an overhead lift is part of that. So I'm really super glad. I think with the type of children's play area in that park, and it, as was mentioned, its proximity to major events and the boardwalk. I think, I know it's come up in the committee before about the lack of a changing places washroom there. So I'm not certain if I heard this correctly, but I'm really curious whether those surge event washrooms will be, any of them will be accessible for wheelchair users. Sorry if I'm asking this again, but.
Yes, they will be.
Okay.
A portion of them will be, yes.
Okay. I think that is really important because even when a porta potty is accessible, it's often not accessible. So those can be really difficult. And I had that problem at Pride. And I also struggled at Pride this year figuring out how to navigate non-gendered washrooms and turn taking, and it took me like 42 minutes to get a bathroom that I could pee in. So so that's beyond the actual development of the washroom sort of field house situation, but signage and sort of norms around access to those wheelchair washrooms, accessible washrooms, I think are really important. And I just am so glad that art is a part of this, because I think a lot of washroom facilities can really feel, especially outdoor ones, can feel really ugly and yucky to be in. So way to go on that.
Thank you. And if I can just comment on the one of the points that you raised there. Clear signage that's easily identifiable and including Braille is going to be included on each one of the washroom stalls. So that will hopefully limit the confusion folks experience while coming up to that. And yes, I agree on the art as well. I think it's going to be a really interesting and exciting part of this project and help make it feel like a special place within the park and not just another institutional washroom building.
Thank you. So I do have a speakers list. I'm going to go to Bay, then Tammy, Sahara, Linda, Sarah, and then Richard in that order. Bay?
So I had some ideas and kind of questions about it. Have you considered outward facing stalls in a building with sinks on the outside where people don't have to cram in through hallways to get into stalls? It's just you open the door and you're in. And another thing is, have you considered doing a change room facility? Because people go swimming at the beach there, and then they go into the washrooms and drip water over everything and dirt over everything. Yeah, those are a couple of the questions I have here.
Yeah, thank you. So like I said, we're still kind of in the early days of the design, but what we've been discussing is a washroom facility that would have exterior entrances into individual washroom pods. So you'd be coming from the out of doors into a private washroom space that's all yours for the time that you're using it. You'd have a toilet, you'd have a sink, you'd have a mirror, you'd have a hook to hang things up, etc. And then with respect to a change facility, that's not something that we've reviewed as part of this project, but it's definitely something we can take a look at and see what the metrics are that we have for beach usage and a potential need for a change facility at this particular park, and we can definitely take a look into that. Thanks for raising that.
Okay. The other thing was just about the taps at the hand wash sinks. If putting in automatic ones would be feasible, because often the taps in these facilities are like a lever and it pours for like 5 seconds. And so you're washing your hands and then you're touching dirty taps trying to get the soap off. And for some people, it's quite difficult to coordinate to get that to work properly.
Yeah, that's absolutely something we can take a look at. That's a very easy one to integrate. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Tammy?
I'm just looking at the total number of toilets that you're going to be putting in, and how many are in the current washrooms right now? How many toilets are there between the women's and the men's?
I'm not entirely sure. Charlotte or Mike, do you know off the top of your heads how many we have in the park currently?
Right now in the
Maffeo?
there's
In the women's side, there's 3.
This is 2. Okay.
2 and a euro.
Okay, so you're going from 5 total, and you're going to put in 8 universal plus 2 accessible. Is
2
that-
accessible, and then plus the ones that would be going in for the high event
Right.
days. Yes.
Okay, that was my question. I do like the idea of the exterior sinks. I think that with all the food truck days and everything, I think people are not washing their hands as much as they should when you're eating food at the park, and it would be great just to not have to like go into a toilet area to wash your hands. So I do like that idea as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sahara?
Hello, this all sounds really good. I don't know if it was answered, but I had a question about just if there was going to be any plans for like, tactile or interactive elements to engage like diverse audiences in the park. And then also the importance of how are people going to know like about the new bathrooms and where they're located in the park, and if there's any plans around that.
Sure. So one of the discussions we've had with the goals for the public art as being a part of this facility is for it to be an interactive piece that people are able to experience and interact with. Not entirely sure what that would look like. It's something that will evolve as we work through our design and identify an artist we're going to work with and start working through that with them. But having that kind of an element is definitely something that we're talking about. One of the things that we've talked about at a very high level is the kind of reality of, you know, if a caregiver needs to go into a washroom and they've got a couple of kids that are waiting outside, you know, having something that the kids can do for a couple of minutes to keep them busy and keep them happy would be really nice. And if that can be integrated in as part of the art as an engaging element, that would be fabulous to do. And I'm sorry, would you mind just reminding me on your second point, please?
Just for if there's a new location,
Oh,
it's not
yes,
exactly
thank
the
you.
same spot, just how are people who are visually impaired going to find out about that, and if there's going to be anything like a map or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this would include some wayfinding signage updates that would happen within the park to let people know that, you know, I'm not sure what's going to happen with the old washroom, but this is the new washroom and it's the great spot to go. We would, of course, be posting about this on the city's social media sites, news releases, that kind of a thing as it's opening. So that would hopefully help folks understand where to go with it. And one of the discussions we've had around the wayfinding and the signage is to make sure that this is an easily identifiable space within the park, so that when someone's saying, hey, let's meet up at the washroom, or I need to go use the washroom, you know where to go. You're not looking around and, you know, getting confused of where to go off to.
Michael, if I can just on top of that as well, one of the things we're doing through the Westwood Lake Phase 2 project is piloting some accessible wayfinding signage. And so we look forward to bringing that back to ACAI, rolling out at Westwood, and then also hopefully finding a great playbook that works for us and using it in other parks.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Linda. You are muted still, Linda.
Sorry about that. 1 year I'll get used to Zoom. Kids are something we often forget in accessible washrooms. We put it in baby change tables and adult change tables, but there are tables that are meant more for 6, 7, 8-year-olds that need to be lifted out of a chair. And it's important that a ceiling track be able to access both the toilet and the adjustable change table. Some people need to be cleaned on the table. Others are lifted out of their chair and towards the toilet. And I think one of the things you could do with design is like a big accessible washroom can also be a change space or a family washroom where people can keep their children with them and be safe while they're attending to their own needs or the needs of their kids. So it's and building code requires now for every 10 stalls you have 1 accessible stall, not a universal washroom, and a limited mobility washroom, which is just a normal size stall with grab bars. And a lot of people need that extra help to get up off a toilet, and they're just attached to the walls of the washroom. So I think if you follow the CSA 2023 guidelines and the new BC building code, you'll be in great shape.
Great, thank you.
I have Sarah, then Richard, and then back to Bay, and then Nicole.
I just have a question, just jumping off what Jocelyn raised. You had said that there would be accessible bathrooms in the surge bathroom area for special events. Do you have an idea of what percentage or how many of those units are going to be fully wheelchair accessible?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Is there a goal or like any kind of, I guess I'm just curious if it's going to exceed expectations. I'm really pleased that you've got 2 in the plan for the regular use area. So I'm just curious to see if we can continue that trend with the next.
I would expect that we'd be able to continue the trend along. I don't have hard numbers for it at this point, but yeah, I appreciate your enthusiasm on it, and it's certainly something that we want to continue momentum on.
Okay, thank you.
Richard.
Hi. So to kind of follow up, I went up to Tofino and experienced their public washrooms, and I found that they were very unique because they kind of fit the aesthetic of the space that it was in a little bit, like with tiles and all that. And then of course they had showers there too. I know that would probably be a little controversial because of people that are unhoused. But I think it would kind of be beneficial to have like foot washing or something like that for the beach use. Maybe a small bench to like change in that. As for visual aesthetics of the space too, I think one thing that increases overall feeling of safety is improving the lighting around that space too, not just at the space, but around it. And then on top of that, having the aesthetics of the color choices being used from the playground, I think that would be really nice to link it to the actual bathroom amenities space too, so that it's not just another building that's plunked down, that it has like a link to this space that was already mindfully created. And then to help increase like the visual identify, not just the braille, but having like raised symbols for maybe the universal, the men's and the women's. I find that in some spaces where people aren't able to read Braille. Maybe the signage is really small, and the symbol for like men and women is flush, so you can't actually like tactilely feel it. But for me, going down, say like a dark hall or something like that, just being able to feel quickly is always quite easier, because of course you can feel the shape. And then having using the colors from the playground to play with the high contrast nature of some of those texts and markers. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, those are some great insights. Thank you very much. And I particularly appreciate your comments on the Tofino washrooms, because I designed a few of those earlier in my career. So I'm glad that they're well received. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Armstrong with a first-time question, and then I will take second-round questions from Bay, Nicole, and Jocelyn.
Thank you. I was in Mississauga, and what they have in some of their accessible washrooms are the sprayers, so that they can clean a lot better. So is that something we would look at, putting in a sprayer, similar to a bidet, but not a full bidet?
I mean, if that's something that's desired by the committee, that's something that we could look at.
And the reason they do it there is for cultural reasons, because there's some nations there where it's really important for them to have better hygiene. So I don't know if it's worthwhile. I defer to the people that are dealing with the cleaning, but I think it might be a lot simpler to have a hose that they could spray and then, I don't know, just throwing that out. Thank you.
Bay. I'm going to go to Bay online.
Hi. I was thinking about families because of that playground. There's a lot of children and a lot of families. A lot of public washrooms, you can't bring your stroller into the stalls with you. So you leave your stroller in the hallway, somebody might steal it or take stuff out of it. Also, you have to take your kid out of it and then have them on the lap with you while you use the washroom. I also wondered if you were considering putting in any child-sized toilets, ideally ones that don't flush loud, because it tends to scare them immensely.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, and I've got 2 young kids of my own. I'm just a little out of the stroller phase now, but I definitely hear you on the challenge it can be at times kind of navigating those strollers through some tighter spaces. We hadn't looked at including any child-sized toilets in the space, but that's not to say that that's not something that we could take a look at. So, you know, with that being highlighted for us, that's something I can talk to the design team about. Maybe doubling up toilets in one of the facilities in there, so that there is one that's available for children as well, but it also serves larger members of our community as well.
Thank you. I'll go to Nicole and then Jocelyn.
Yeah, to jump off on the idea of a family washroom and child-sized toilets. Lower toilets do not just for children, but for people who have limb differences and height differences. Sometimes they could independently access a lower toilet that they can't access a regular public toilet. And then in Bebin Social Center, I believe, and maybe some of the arenas, they have like a pull-down step stool. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like metal, it flips up. So having some of those in near the sinks for people who can't reach. Mm-hmm. And then something I've come across often is the soap is often on the back wall over quite a depth of sink. And this is not just in city facilities, this is everywhere. So anybody who has an upper extremity limb difference, they can't reach that soap. So even putting it on the side wall beside the sink, it doesn't change anything about the function for the people who would reach it at the back of the sink, but it makes all the difference for a small child or somebody who has a shorter upper extremity.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I'm thinking of my daughter's daycare, and that's exactly what it is. And the kids can't reach the soap, so now they have a separate soap that sits on the front because
and then it gets
the way it was exactly the way that it was installed. It's 99% of the users can't actually use the thing. So that's a great point you're raising.
Thank you, Nicole. Jocelyn?
Also me, I can't reach them when they're behind the sink because I'm, seated all the time, and I don't know if that's the only reason. Maybe I have short arms. So I second that suggestion to have the soap within reach. One of the things that someone else said made me think of this, and I just wanted to put it out there in terms of your analysis of sort of traffic patterns that I know that you use, like foot traffic, in terms of who needs what in this washroom. I would not have thought of a change room myself, but one of the most common misuses of an accessible washroom is as a change room. And maybe it's controversial to say it's a misuse, but when people coming to use the park can't go to the bathroom because it's being used to change clothes only, that's a pretty big deal. And it either plan for more accessible washrooms, or you plan for a secondary change space to prevent that. So, and I don't know what that looks like for the usage patterns at Maffeo Sutton, but I think that putting some thought to that might also help the accessible washrooms be more available.
Okay, thank you.
I'll ask a question about washroom availability hours. What are the hours that the washrooms in the park are currently open? And with the redesign, is there any way that they can be open longer through designing them so they're safe spaces, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's really more of an operational question as opposed to an establishment question. So if I can refer over to my friends there, please.
Absolutely. So they're presently open till 11 p.m. in the summer and 9 p.m. in the winter. And we would need to change some of our staffing in order to be able to deal with any other extended hours, but that's definitely something that we could look at.
And then if there were obviously special events happening in the park, then that would be taken into consideration because there would be later staffing hours.
Yeah, permitted events, yes.
Thank you.
They open at 6 a.m. Yeah, we're very, very busy in the morning. You have to have them open at that time.
Great. Linda?
I agree with what Jocelyn said, and it is too easy to turn accessible washrooms into change spaces, and I guess I'm coming from a place of scarcity. Oh, and I forgot my point. Well, I'll put my hand back up when I remember it. How's that?
Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, I just did want to follow up with that change room because I think those are really good valid points, because I see kids down there all the time with their parents and they're taking them in to change and they're dragging the dirt in. And like Richard said, if you even had like a little foot bath before they go into the change rooms, I don't know what the cost would be. It doesn't have to be super fancy, but maybe that is something, it could be one of the options that you look at when you bring it back to council, because I've heard from everybody at the table that that's something they think would be really important, and it would free up the washrooms. And I mean, I don't think making a change room would be as expensive as a washroom, I would think. But from my perspective, I would like to see that be included. Thank you.
Linda, you remembered your question.
I remembered my point, yeah. One of the reasons for planning for more, so if you're planning to build 3, is that a lot of people exclude themselves from events right now because there is no washroom.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there is an accessible washroom at Maffeo Sutton, but barely accessible in the ladies' room. And so I think part of what happens is that as we build these facilities, you get more and more people in wheelchairs and with strollers and with walkers and things coming out. So all of a sudden, by the time you open it, people know, oh, wow, I can actually use a washroom, and then you need more right away. So that's a point for planning more than you think you might need. Because anyone can use an accessible washroom, but people in wheelchairs can't use any washroom.
Thank you. And Sean?
Yeah, and so, sometimes when we, I think, bring up these issues, we can also be aware that we're creating new problems that need to be solved, and they're just as important. So it's important for people to be able to wash their feet as they go in, and then it's important to consider that now we're making the floor wet. And so anyone with mobility issues walking on a wet floor is at risk of falling and slipping and that sort of thing. So now we, considering that all of these things are important, people need to come in with clean feet so that we keep the space clean. And also we need to have non-stick, slip-proof? Non-slip, thanks, Ro. Non-slip floors so that when we get the floors wet, and we will get them wet, that people can still access those spaces safely without falling. Because many people without mobility devices still have mobility issues on uneven or slippery surfaces, and so that's a consideration as well. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just necessarily folks that are maybe cleaning off their feet before coming in. Rain's here fairly frequently, and folks are coming in wearing their boots or their shoes, coming out of the rain after a good walk. And so just as a matter of course, anti-slip treatments on the floor is an extremely important step along the way just to ensure the safety of everybody. That's a very good point.
Well, thank you everyone for your comments. I don't have anyone else on the speakers list right now. So Michael, thank you so much for your presentation. And thank you to the committee for your thorough comments. And if you do think of anything else, please feel free to email myself and Councillor Armstrong, and we can share those comments with staff, because we're still in the relatively early planning stages. When is the next time that we would hear about this project?
So my plan was to bring it before the committee now to have the kind of conversation that we just had. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you all very much for sharing your insights, asking the questions that you've asked, and really highlighting some areas that you feel are very important to be included in this project. This is a great time to provide that feedback because there's been a bit of pen on paper writing memos and reports and that kind of thing right now, but we haven't gotten into the nitty-gritty of doing drawings and structural designs and all of that kind of stuff. And once we get into that, making changes becomes much more difficult to do and much more expensive to do. So if we can establish those criteria through conversations like this now, it's a lot easier for us to integrate those in. So now that we've had this conversation, I'm going to go back to our design team, and they'll kind of go crazy on this stuff and do what they're great at. And once we've got a much more mature design, we'll bring it back to the committee. And the plan will be to say, we told you we were going to do this. These are areas that you highlighted, and we were able to integrate them, and here's how we were able to integrate it. So the desire really is to kind of bookend it with the committee of, hey, we're going to go do something. What do you think? And then, hey, we're most of the way done doing this thing. Really hope you like it, because we've listened to you, and we're bringing it back reflective of the discussions that we've had originally.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for the insight in the process and for coming to us early on this. It's really appreciated.
Thank you again.
So next up, we have an accessibility audit update to be introduced by Mike Bryson, Director of Facility and Parks Operations. Thank you for being here, Mike.
My pleasure. Good to see everyone. It's been a little while. I just wanted to give an update where we are with some of the facilities that we're auditing. Last time I was here, I took you through some of the information about the grant that we received from the Rick Hansen Foundation. How are you using those funds that we received, and some of the plans going forward in the future. This is more of an update on how that's progressing. So just for a bit of history, we had Rick Hansen Foundation offered us the chance to audit some of our facilities. We chose the Frank Crane Arena, the Bowen Complex, and as well as the Nanaimo Aquatic Center. So Rick Hansen Foundation sent in an auditor. They went through those facilities, and from their audits determined, gave us a list of areas that we could improve on in each of those facilities. And as well, they also gave us a grant of $82,000. We used that grant money to take care of a lot of the issues that they had identified, and we were successful in that, and it was a very good process. Really enjoyed the process. It was they're a great group to work with, and helped us a long ways. So some of the things that we did, just as an update, background a little bit, is probably the only one that we haven't quite finished was markings the glazed doors, walls to reduce glare and improve identification to those with vision issues. One of the reasons we held off is we just recently finished putting up a wall in the lobby at the Nanaimo Aquatic Center. It's a glass wall and it separates the guest services area from the locker rooms. So that was part of it. So we're waiting for that to finish, and it is now. So we'll proceed with that. Directional signage has all been completed. We've had Braille raised text and symbols in accessible locations to improve access to washrooms and offices for folks with visually impaired. Additional visual alarms, so people, if an alarm goes off in the facility, they'll know. They'll have flashing strobes. For the Frank Crane Arena, accessible parking stalls, including marks for safe pedestrian route to the facility, that's been completed. Additional directional signage, the reception area and adjacent hallway has also been completed. Wayfinding signage in lobby reception area to spaces such as washrooms, elevator, and interior services has been completed. And as well, Braille raised text and symbols at all accessible locations to improve access to washrooms and offices for those who may have reduced vision or blindness. So that's all been completed. For Bowen, exterior directional signage to improve wayfinding for everyone has been completed. Tactile attention indicators at top and interior and exterior staircases to alert those with vision issues or blindness. That's been completed. Additional directional signage in the reception area has been completed. Handrails and seating along hallways has been completed. And door handles, changing them over to lever type. We've got most of them completed, but there's still some left to do. And visual alarms were needed to alert folks with hearing issues or deafness has been completed. So next phase of improvement, to complete the whole Rick Hansen grant process, we added in the Nanaimo Aquatic Center, we added a no-slip surface to all of the floors, the entire deck area, all of our change rooms, anywhere that people have access to the pool. We found that it was just a slippery surface. People with mobility issues were having a hard time navigating through the complex. Last time we did this, we did just certain areas of the pool deck itself, and we found that it was just better to do the whole building. So we did all the locker rooms, the washrooms, everywhere that people might have access. And that was quite a process, and it works quite well. So in addition to that, we're also doing, aside from the Nanaimo Aquatic Center, we're also doing a lot of the floors at the Bevan pool, including locker room, steam room, a large part of the deck area. We're also doing the showers at the Oliver Woods Community Center, which we've had some issues with there being slippery. So it's quite an easy process, and in going through this process, we found that we have a company that's coming in and doing it for us, but it's something we can do operationally as well. So we'll have our own staff do this on a regular basis from now on. So that is just, I think it's going to become an operational maintenance issue that we use on a regular basis just to make all of our floors. Mike talked about incorporating into the new washrooms of Maffeo Sutton. It'll be something we can do operationally, so it'll be a lot easier process. Extra wayfinding blade signage for the 3 facilities, that's all been completed now. The last part of that, as I was just talking to Deb Beck about it today, is doing emergency access for evacuation routes and that, making larger, easier to read signs with tactile improvements to it so that that whole process. So that's the last part of our signage that we're going to be taking on. We have purchased 4 wheelchairs for moving patrons with disabilities at the Nanaimo Aquatic Center and the Frank Crane Arena. That's been completed. And automatic door openers at the Frank Crane Arena. We added those as well. So there's just some pictures of the different areas that we worked on. Now what's coming next is future assessments. So we had a list we put up last time I was here of all of our different facilities and parks and the different areas that we thought we might want to have audited. So since the last time I was here, we've actually engaged an auditor from the Rick Hansen Foundation to come and start auditing our facilities. The first one he is going to be doing will be the Oliver Woods Community Center, the building itself, as well as the playground outside. That's going to take place on September 29th, I believe. And so I'm going to meet with him up there and we'll do that together. And so that's going to be quite the process. I'm looking forward to that, actually. And then we have 3 other facilities that we'll be doing directly after that, and those will be all done within the month of October. So the next time I come back to this committee will be with those audits in hand with some recommendations from the auditor, from the Rick Hansen Foundation, and then we can make plans on how we put those into action and take care of some of the issues that they find. So like I said, the ones that we are looking at doing are the Oliver Woods Community Center, that's on the 29th of September. Followed by that, we'll be doing the Nanaimo Ice Center, both arenas and the entire facility itself. As far as parks, we chose Westwood Lake Park. Westwood Lake is going into Westwood Lake is going into the second phase of construction right now. We're redeveloping that whole park area. But we wanted to have the auditor in place during and after construction to make sure that we get it right, so that when access to the park and the features that are there, a lot of it's already been considered with the construction that's going on. We want to make sure we look at it with a different lens as well, from having an auditor from Rick Hansen going in and taking a look at that. So that's going to be one that's kind of ongoing in progress until we finish that project. These are some other parks. And the other one will be this Roxman Stadium, and that would include the facility, this Roxman building itself, the baseball stadium, and the bleacher area, and that whole area. So the idea is that as we go along, we'll be taking on more and more facilities, more parks, and making sure that over time, all of our facilities have an opportunity to be audited, so that we know what kind of modifications, what kind of improvements, what kind of areas we can cover and take care of. And that's kind of what, and I also mentioned there was 2 staff members, myself, one of them, and I'm running my exam on the 18th, which is next, when is that? Next week. Start studying. It's a week today. Oh, man. But I am. So I made that commitment, and I went through the program through the Rick Hansen Foundation. It was through, who was it? Pardon me, BIC. But it was an excellent program. I learned a lot. It was the lady who was the instructor, Pat Short, did a great job. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I encourage anyone who wants to get involved with that type of level with the Rick Hansen Foundation. It's well worthwhile. I really enjoyed my time. So I'm going to write my exam because I'd like to finish it off. And so next time I come, hopefully I'll be able to tell you that I'm actually an auditor. Yes. But that said, I still think it's valuable to have an outside external auditor come in, just have different eyes looking at it. And I think that just gives a much better credibility to the whole process. And so again, that's something that I just sort of finish off. So there's the next 2 facilities to be audited will be Oliver Woods, and then followed by the Nanaimo Ice Center. That's it.
Thank you so much. So I do have a few people on the question list, starting with Richard, then Sean, and then Tammy, and then Nicole. Richard?
Are we able to provide any feedback then on those 2 ones or 3 that are going to be looked at next? Because there were 3 things that I've kind of identified from walking through the space pretty often.
Certainly, if there's areas that you...
So at Oliver Woods, we have the seniors activity area there, but I've heard from seniors that live just down the street at the seniors home there, that it's actually harder to navigate with their walkers to go through a significant portion of that park area. And secondly, the gate that is there at the park is a little bit harder to navigate. Third, the actual trails, some of them aren't actually kept up during some parts of the year. So trees have fallen over parts of the trails and haven't been looked at, or vegetation has caused some of the trails to essentially turn into deer trails. So either having an edging or something so that a white cane or even just your own feet can feel the edge of the path versus the forest would be beneficial too.
Good points. Really good points.
Mike, Richard.
Laura's marking some of this stuff down for me so that when I meet with Cliff on the 29th, it's definitely, I'll bring that up with him so we make sure we identify that.
Thanks, Richard. Sean?
Yeah, thank you. So a lot of great improvements and really glad to see a lot of these things in place. When this came by the ACAI committee previously, there was a lot of, I think, conversation from the committee around considerations for people with sensory processing issues, and that our recommendation to move forward with this was based on the idea that there were going to be some considerations around putting accommodations in for people with sensory processing stuff. I don't see any of those in here in terms of the improvements. So we had talked about some of the noise issues, some of the flashing light issues for people with sensory processing. And, you know, we knew that there was some transition with the new RHF guidelines, and that sort of you were all going through the audit and training process in sort of a liminal space in between learning the new guidelines and working on the old ones. And so I just want to know maybe what happened to that. I know it was really important with the committee last time we talked that those considerations were in place and sort of part and parcel of our approval of this project, and I'm just not really seeing those aspects here. So are they just not listed, or are they in a next round? So yeah, if you could speak to where some of those accommodations are, that'd be great.
As far as the sensory accommodations?
Yeah, so there are a lot of sensory considerations around being in places like the Nanaimo Aquatic Center in terms of it being a loud space, in terms of parents of children with sensory processing disorders having a hard time because there's not necessarily a quiet or safe space to take their kids. If something comes up, I mean, just the echo and that sort of thing. The smells can be really overwhelming for people. So there's a lot of sensory issues related. We talked about initially when you talked about adding the flashing red lights as a way marker, we also talked about how those could be an issue for people with sensory processing. So we had wanted to see some, I guess, time going into examining what accommodations would be useful for people with sensory processing disorders. I'm just wondering if those considerations were factored in and the new RHF guidelines, which include guidelines to support people with sensory processing, if that was factored into these accommodations, and if not, then why?
Okay,
Thanks.
Good point. Outside of the flashing strobes for the fire alarm, that was a recommendation from Rick Hansen, auditor at the time. And I do remember the conversation that might be an issue for some folks that have sensory issues. We can certainly address that again. We acted on that simply because it was from the auditor that this was a high recommendation for folks that wouldn't otherwise be able to know there was an emergency in the facility. Not to say that there might be another way we could address that, or have those folks be notified if there was an emergency in the facility. I can certainly ask and see if there is some modifications we can make to that. The auditor that's coming is going to be using the Rick Hansen 4 version of their manual, so it will be the most up-to-date information as far as codes and recommendations that they have. Other sensory issues, good points, and I will certainly run it by him. I will ask him what we can do to make some of those sensory issues, in his opinion, what we can possibly do to make those a more usable space for sensory issues. I mean, it's a complicated space, given it's such a large, busy recreation facility. It's difficult to do in the space itself, but I do recognize that, maybe we can create an area within the facility where somebody can go and just have a quiet space to go to try and get away from some of that noise and some of the external stimulants that might become an issue. So I will definitely look into that.
I think we have to stress too that this is actually being done because we got money from the Rick Hansen Foundation. So these audits are to satisfy the dollars from the Rick Hansen Foundation. What you're talking about is added on afterwards. Yeah, so it's that, am I not correct?
You're correct.
Yeah.
This is
We have
using
to
grant dollars.
remember that this is because the money we got, we have to be audited to make sure we complied with what Rick Hansen Foundation wanted. So that's why these were done first, not to say that we can't add on to the next at a later date.
But great points, and they're well worth exploring for sure. I mean, the whole idea of these audits that we're going down, that we're doing now, there is no more money from the Rick Hansen Foundation. We do have a little bit of money. I should actually mention that too. Is now that we've finished, we've satisfied all of the projects that we identified through the Rick Hansen Foundation. They will send the auditor back to our facilities. They'll re-audit our facilities and give us a new rating. I'm anticipating we'll get a gold rating on each of these facilities. We'll get a nice placard for each of the facilities, as well as a door decal that's saying that this is a recognized facility through Rick Hansen Foundation and it's completely accessible. And we're looking forward to that and be very proud of that. In the future, for the facilities that we're auditing down the road, we will have our own budgeted dollars that we have set aside for making these kinds of improvements. And that's a really good opportunity for us to really dive into what these audits bring out and how do we make sure we address the most crucial issues at hand. So that's probably when that'll take place. But I will talk to Cliff when I see him on the 29th.
Okay, I have Tammy, then Nicole, then Bay, and Linda.
I just wanted to ask, when you go and do the Soroxman Stadium, if it's going to include the parking near the track, if that is something that's going to be included, because that's where you have your Special Olympics and that's where you have a lot of the school district events. But is there any disability parking at that space? There definitely is not enough for when, like, you have an event like Special Olympics, and I understand that, BC Summer Games is coming to Nanaimo, and I feel like we're going to need more disability parking accessible parking at the track right in that area, and also for the ball field as well.
That's school district property? That's why.
Yeah. It's
the stadium. So the stadium is City of Nanaimo, and then.
Yes.
Track is school district.
And where's the parking?
Well, no, it's yeah, road. They are different facilities, and what we've done is we've done the Soroxman Stadium, and we picked 4 facilities. So Soroxman Stadium is kind of its own little envelope, and then to do the Rotary Bowl, that type of area would be another envelope, so it would be another complete audit.
So that's the baseball, right? The track is
Correct.
at NDSS, right?
So
it's right behind
the Rotary Bowl
Yep.
field. Sorry, Tammy. The Rotary Bowl field is on city land, but the parking lot at the rear of that is school district land. And so the audit that Mike is talking about is to the Soroxman Stadium, which
Yep.
is city land, and the audit is only planned to take care of that envelope. And so at the moment, there are no plans necessarily for increasing accessible parking to Rotary Bowl. However, we have done a redesign of the Stadium District parking lot, which will include more accessible spaces.
Okay.
And we hope to achieve that next spring.
So that's City of Nanaimo.
And that's city land, yes.
Which is different from what the Rick Hansen Foundation's going to audit.
No, the Rick Hansen Foundation will be looking at the Stadium District facility.
Okay, so the facility includes parking.
But not all parking.
The facility.
So yes, I understand.
Some school district is the problem.
Yeah. Okay. And then my other comment, and I know you talked about that it's probably not falling into this Rick Hansen Foundation audits, but within Nanaimo Aquatic Center, the one accessible changing area with the lift and the change table is barely enough to fit like a wheelchair. And often, like when you have that facility, when a person needs that, you also need another caregiver in there. And so that space is really not big enough. So I just wanted to put that into the record. Thanks.
I agree, Tammy, and that's been mentioned many times. And it's a construction thing as far as, it's a tight space, it really is. I totally agree. We've looked at some different modifications of the change rooms versus the bathrooms it's one of those projects that's going to be a large one, but I do definitely understand.
Nicole.
So 2 separate things. So when we're talking about the complex of Soroxman and Rotary Bowl and the soccer field, we've had this conversation. I know that some partnership communication was happening with the school district because we talked about, I'm not sure if it was when you were here, but we talked about how it is a complex, like it's part of a system that includes Nick and where the buses come to the Friend of NDSS and to get to NAC and then on to Soroxman, there's really no accessible path from the bus stop. And so I know that I'm happy that more is being audited. I feel that audits of any one part of that complex in isolation maybe gives us a limited view on what the problem and what the solutions are, because, and I understand land is, some of it's owned by some people and like the district, but ultimately it's all taxpayer and it's all required to meet, like it all falls under the same accessibility mandate from the provincial government that formed this committee and forms the school districts committee. So if we can figure out how to partner in such a way that the accessible spots for Soroxman become the accessible spots for Rotary Bowl and for the NAC, and we can make the paths between those different points of contact with transportation, I just think that it would be better in the long run. So that's my comment on the Soroxman complex, because I don't really know what we call which things. The sports district, is that what it's called?
Stadium district.
Stadium district, that, right. Okay. On a totally separate note, you mentioned wheelchairs for getting through Frank Crane and the NAC.
Yes.
And I think that's great. I'm wondering about, and maybe this isn't Rick Hansen or facility audit, so tell me if it's somebody else. We still don't have any way for a person who cannot put on skates to actually access the ice in Nanaimo. We have no parasleds, we rent skates. We will allow you to push your wheelchair or your stroller on the ice, but that's not the same. So as we look at the Nick, especially, because I know Frank Crane, the drop off onto the ice is huge, and I don't really think that that's doable. But as we look at the other arenas, I'd encourage the facility / programming to look at, can we have some parasleds, and where would we store them? Because that is also an issue. And how would those parasleds access the ice surface? And Comox has a start of that. So if you
Okay,
need,
good. That's good to know. Oh, great points. Appreciate that. It's the stadium district is definitely a large parcel of land, and to try and audit it in this way we're doing this right now probably wouldn't, just because we're kind of limited in how much we can audit at one time. That said, I think there has to be an understanding that we're auditing Soroxman Stadium right now, but we will be auditing Rotary Bowl, the fields, all that has to be, and that has to be done in a way that it kind of goes together at the end so that we have an overall picture. And maybe that's that dictates the timeline so that we don't do Soroxman Stadium and then do the Rotary Bowl in a year from now and then lose what we've already done at Soroxman Stadium, so that they kind of go together. So it's, again, another question I'll ask the auditor and get his opinion on that, because it's a large area and it all does blend, and that's the whole idea, is that it blends from one part of the stadium district to the other, and it's supposed to be completely accessible. So it's a good point. Appreciate that.
I have Bay and then Linda.
Hello. I wanted to talk about the pool facilities and ventilation. There's gases that get created through the chlorine interaction with sweat, etc. And it makes it very difficult for people with asthma or sensitivities or even sensitive skin to use the facilities. I've tried swimming with a N95 on. It's not a fun experience, as you can imagine. But yeah, it pretty much eliminates that as a viable form of exercise. And there's a lot of aquafit, sort of aqua aerobics programs that are really good for people who have mobility issues. And I just wondered if it's possible to increase the ventilation in the facilities.
Great question, and one that we've been working on for some time now. The ventilation system, if we're talking about the Nanaimo Aquatic Center, NAC, is undergoing a complete transformation. We are working with a consultant to completely revamp the whole HVAC system in that so that we achieve, in an aquatic center, you have to have a minimum of 6 air exchanges per hour. And we'll probably surpass that, but we are looking, that's in the works very actively, and that will increase the airflow to that building exponentially. On the other side, when it comes to the water chemistry, we've completely changed the water chemistry that we do in our pools. We add a product to the water that kills all of the combined chlorine, which is what gives off the gas that you are saying is an issue, which it is. So that's in place right now. We've added that, and we're having great success with that. It also, by using these chemicals that we're adding to the pool, reduces the amount of chlorine that we use by at least 30%, and the amount of acid that we need in the pool by 50%. So it has all kinds of benefits, but the biggest benefit is makes for crystal clear water that's very nice to swim in, and you won't have any off-gassing, any chloramines. That, and combined with the HVAC system that's going in, should have a very pleasant place to swim.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, super interesting. Thank you. Linda and then Richard.
I just wanted to speak to the sensory issues, and a lot of the things that people with sensory issues need can be handled operationally. So I've noticed that some of the grocery stores are setting aside an hour or two, perhaps at a non-busy time of day, that they dim the lights, they kill the music, and that's something that we might be able to do, offer selected times where the pool will be quieter. Because a pool full of kids and adults is never going to be quiet unless you limit the number of people in there. Another thing that we could do operationally has to do with paint colors and floor and wall colors. That a lot of like black and white stripes or the certain shades of red can really set people off and create seizures sometimes. But if you avoid, there are lists of colors that are more friendly for people with sensory issues than other colors. And those would just be things that when we're repainting, we choose those instead of perhaps what's up there already.
That's a good point. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Richard.
I worked at a place that actually had a saltwater pool, and I was actually surprised by the amount of people that are either needing rehab or seniors or people that are really sensitive to the chemicals. Even the chemicals that you're planning on like changing and using, those people will develop like rashes and such still, which is what drove them to use the saltwater pools. I was wondering if something like that could somehow be installed. Also, with regards to like Frank Crane Arena, I know like say at, for instance, like a hockey game or something, it can be really loud in there. I was kind of wondering like having like a quieter section that actually had like a bit of noise isolation from the rest of the actual arena could possibly help with like the noise sensitivity stuff that has been mentioned multiple times.
I agree. It's a great idea. I mean, space-wise, Damon was the manager up there for some time. I'm not sure if there's a space up there that would work for that. There is now. There's a room with the two lazy boys in it, but that's more of a promotional thing.
Yeah.
But along those lines.
Yeah, I can just add, right now at Frank Crane Arena, the space that's available would be the VIP room. That's probably the most sort of quiet space that would be available for somebody to kind of get a break and enjoy the game. But sound is still traveling into that space as well. So it's not fully, sound dampened or anything like that.
And I'm sorry, I should have introduced these folks earlier. That's Damon Johnson, manager of Recreation Services, and Laura Clarkson, also a manager of Recreation Services. And thank you, Charlotte Davis, for being here, a manager of Parks Operations. So we've got great staff in the room hearing all of the feedback today.
I'll answer your question, Richard, about saltwater pools. They're very, very popular for many, many years, and they do have a lot of benefits as far as creating soft water. It's bringing the water up to 3,000 parts per million of salt, and then running that through electric banks, cells with electric probes in them, and what that does is it creates chlorine by that electrolysis. Very nice process. It's very expensive, and the salt water by nature does cause problems within the interior of the pool. So there are salt systems that are available, and I've actually been researching them with our company that provides our pool chemicals the last little while, where it's in a different way of generating the same product. So it's just, having preliminary discussions, but it's come a long way. So we don't use salt right now. We use sodium hypochlorite, which is a weak chlorine. It's the weakest chlorine you can actually add to a pool. So what my goal is to have as few chemicals in the water as possible, do as much through filtration so that when you come swimming, there's very few chemicals in the water. So that's kind of the process we've taken, or the plan that we put in place. So hopefully it'll help.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bryson, for your presentation and for all
My
of your
pleasure.
work, and good luck with your exam.
Yeah,
You got this.
I'm not going to tell you if I fail.
No, we have full confidence you got this. Okay, thank you. And our last report today is on inclusive programming. So Damon Johnson, our Manager of Recreation Services, is going to run us through the cool stuff that's been happening.
Great. Thank you, everybody. It's delightful to be here. My name is Damon Johnston, Manager of Recreation Services. We've had some great presentations, I think, on facilities and facility design. So we're gonna switch gears here and talk a little bit more about inclusive programming and a lot of the, I think, great work that's happening in our department in community recreation to really focus on making recreation programming accessible. I've got two members of the community recreation team here, Amanda Daly and Zoe Beck, who are going to do the presentation for you today. So really, again, just excited to be here in front of the ACEI committee and sharing all the great work that's happening. I'm just going to provide some information on some changes that we've made that I think will be of interest to the ACEI committee on our registration day. And so in winter of this year, the Recreation and Culture team spent some time really looking at how we do our registration day. And that's really a really big day for us as a department and what we offer for the community in terms of recreation, culture, and wellness programming. And this was really focused on customer care, customer service, and just acknowledging, not everybody has access to online registration services. So we made some changes. Those changes include opening all 5 major recreation facilities at 6 a.m. So if you don't have a credit card or you don't have access to a computer, you could go to a recreation facility and receive service there and register for a program. We added an additional operator at our switchboard so that we could handle calls and increase service and get callbacks done in a more timely fashion. We scheduled our recreation coordinator team to be available in our lobbies and answer questions and provide information to the public on all of the different programs and services that are available. And we really just wanted to create a welcoming environment for people coming into our facilities and just saying, hey, thanks for being here, and we're here to serve you, and these are all the different opportunities. So really just kind of highlighting and showcasing all the amazing planning work that goes into putting that activity guide together, and really doing that in a inclusive and accessible way. Yeah, it was hugely successful. I think the feedback we got, our lobbies at Bowen Park and Oliver Woods Community Center were jam-packed with seniors. They were waiting to get into crib and bridge and all of those really popular programs. So it was great. I'm pleased to say our registration numbers are up. And I think many community organizations are experiencing the same thing. And just of note, as I said earlier, our callback times, we walked in and there was 183 calls to make, and we were getting those callbacks done in 15 minutes. So really, really focusing on getting back to the customer and trying to remove barriers that we kind of identified that had existed before. So I'm gonna pass it over to the team here. The primary focus of our presentation today is on inclusive programming and really looking mostly at children and youth. Of course, we do other programming for adults and seniors as well, but we're really going to be primarily focusing on children and youth tonight. So thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak to you, and please enjoy the presentation. Amanda and Zoe, I'll pass it off to you.
Lower this. Thanks, Damon. Again, my name is Amanda. I'm a recreation coordinator, and you usually see me sitting at the back taking notes and writing down some ideas, and then I bring those back to the rest of the recreation team and pass that along. And then this is Zoe. I've had the pleasure of working with Zoe for the last 2 summers. Zoe is our Summer Recreation Leader 3. And she oversees and runs the day-to-day and some of the organizing and planning that goes with our Camp Sensation and integration programs during the summer. Make sure I do this. Okay. So for our presentation today, we're going to touch on our city plan, the current programs that we are offering now, our partnerships that we've developed throughout the years, and some opportunities that we see moving forward in the future. I'm a little new at this, so forgive me. So throughout our city plan, there are several policies and action plans that go back to the work that we are doing and hope to continue to do more of in the future. So for a couple examples, C3.32, supporting equitable access for children and youth and families in our recreation programs and facilities. C3.6.19, develop a shared agreement with the School District 68. Some other ones, 4.3.15, continuing to provide a variety of inclusive and barrier-free activities that support different age groups, including seniors and youth, and continuing to offer adaptive sport options, working with partners and organizations whenever possible. So currently, we have our summer camp, Camp Sensation, and our summer program integration. Camp Sensation and our integration program are fully funded through the Ministry of Children and Family Development. This is one of our longest standing partnerships, as well as this is one of our longest standing summer programs, Camp Sensation. However, COVID happened, Sensation had to end. Coming out of COVID, integration was created. And what that offered, it was being able to have those children with diverse abilities come and still be able to experience camp. So Camp Sensation and integration is a one-on-one support program. So with a leader and a child of diverse abilities that get the opportunity to come through to one of our camps for a week that's fully funded through the Ministry of Children and Family Development. Age groups are 6 to 12, and then this year we did 1 week of teen camp. So Camp Sensation took a break over COVID. We created integration. We saw a need for more, and we brought back kind of a hybrid version this year to see how it went. So Camp Sensation ran for 4 weeks this summer, and integration ran for the full 9 weeks of summer. Integration, that's for kids usually that require less support and they do well in group settings. Sensation require some higher needs and don't necessarily work in some of those group camps. Camp Sensation this year we had at Ecole Hammond Bay School, where we were able to partner with School District 68 on that. So that is our Sensation and Integration program that we're currently running. Zoe will talk to you a little bit more in detail on that. The other program that currently has come back from COVID is our Social Club. Social Club takes place from September to June, and that is for young adults all the way up to senior for the most part. It runs every Thursday afternoon from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock at Beban Social Center. And with that, the group gets together. It's all volunteer-led. They come up with the ideas of and the planning that they would like to do. And I'm the liaison, and I help kind of set that up with them. Some things might include, for example, tomorrow they're meeting at Maffeo Sutton to go for a walk there. They do things like bowling, potlucks, we do bingo. A lot of those fun activities for them to get out and be social with their friends. And just as a fun fact, a lot of the people that come to Social Club now once attended Camp Sensation. So it's kind of full circle there. And then lastly, one of the programs that we have currently running is our adaptive hockey program. This is for people of 15 years and up. It's led by 3 of our arena staff. So currently there's 15 in the group. This past year, the group had exhibition games with Nanaimo Buccaneers, Nanaimo Clippers, and they also took a trip to California to play some hockey down there, and they played in a tournament in Surrey. So some really fun activities that they get to do. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Zoe, who's going to give a little bit more detail on our Camp Sensation and Integration program.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, we had an incredible summer this year. It was so nice having Sensation back up and running and just being able to accommodate to that many more families with diverse abilities. We had 12 staff this summer, plus me working, so 13 including myself. Working this summer, both in Sensation and Integration. So throughout the summer, during the 4 weeks, most staff did work in Sensation, which created a lack of support in Integration during those weeks, but we were able to accommodate to the most number of kids with this way. We had a large growth from last summer. Last summer, we were able to accommodate to 58 campers in Integration, and this summer, we were able to accommodate to 85. Between the 2 programs. So Sensation had 41 campers attend ages 6 to 18 over the 4 weeks of camp. Integration had a total of 44 campers attend from ages 6 to 14 over the span of 9 weeks. Yeah, due to limited space in Sensation, we ended up having some kids attend Integration who may have been a better fit for Sensation. So next year, we're hoping to grow the program and be able to provide more weeks of Sensation for some of those campers who it would be a better fit for them. We were so happy with how it turned out. We had amazing out trips and were able to provide a great experience, hopefully, for all families. We ran out of the new extension of Ecole Hammond Bay, we were in the inclusion room. If any of you are familiar with it, it's a fantastic room, accessible, and has great bathrooms there and all that kind of thing. We had the bus driver from the school district drive us around, and they were fantastic. We went as far as Duncan and as far as Parksville to places like Butterfly World, Rathtrevor Beach, Brecken Lanes Bowling, Forest Discovery Center. We went swimming, and we went to Wildlife Recovery Center. As far as training goes for our staff this summer, we had Nanaimo Ladysmith Public School come, and they talked about how to support kids when they're in their fight and flight. We had Canucks Autism Network come to talk about tips, tricks, and tools when working with kids with autism. We had the Child Development Center come to do an overview of working with different diverse abilities and kind of just a general of what those diverse abilities might look like for different kids. And we also did do, with the social club, we did a launch to summer kind of training for our staff just to see what some of the participants of social club maybe experienced when they were in Sensation and what the program looked like for them. And so that was super fun to kind of do a full circle moment with campers who used to attend. With all programs, there's barriers that come up, and we saw lots of these this summer that we're hoping to adjust for next summer. Applications get sent out from MCFD by mail. This created challenges for some families, being that by the time the mail arrives to lots of families, it's been a couple weeks. Also, if you have moved addresses, by the time it arrives to your address and then to your new one, the application date had already passed. So that did create issues for lots of families, as well as just making their way to the facility when you have multiple kids at home. Trying to find time within your day to come actually drop off an application can be quite challenging. So we did see that. arise this summer that we would like to try and explore just different options of how we can provide the applications to families in a way that they are able to complete them and return them efficiently and easier for them. We also just saw a barrier where we're only able to provide support for families who have a social worker. So with the funding coming that we have, it's only available for people who have a social worker to even apply for the program. We did see many families who could have maybe benefited from that support throughout the summer that were not able to apply for this program. We also had lots of families who wanted to apply for more camp. So they are only provided 1 week throughout the summer. And it would be awesome to be able to, they're hoping to see the ability to apply for more camp. Some kids wanted to attend for the whole summer. Yeah, and also transportation for Sensation. Being at Hammond Bay, we did see some families who had more of a challenging time getting to Hammond Bay due to the bus route and length of time it does take from most locations to get there. But overall, it was a beautiful location to be at, and we were so happy to be there. And that's, yeah, thank you.
I do have one question from Sean, if you wouldn't.
Oh, I can wait till.
Okay, great.
Okay, sure. And then I'll just quickly touch on our Canucks Autism Summer Camp. So this was a partnership with Canucks Autism Network, and it was a 1-week multi-sport camp that happened at the outdoor lacrosse box in Harewood there. And we had staff that came and facilitated and organized all the activities, where Canucks Autism Network provided the staff and the one-on-one support for those children with autism. So we're just going to do a bit of a show of some of our pictures because we had such an amazing summer, and the staff did such an amazing job, and everyone had a really great time. And so these are some of the pictures. You can kind of see some of these are at our location at Hammond Bay. So I ran into one of the girls at my children's school, and she had kind of said to me, I said, "Oh, how's school going?" "Oh, I hate school." And you have to know her because she is disagreeable with a lot of things. And she did say, she's like, "But I loved Sensation. It was like school, but way more fun." So it's kind of fun to see them around town and have that relationship. So as we mentioned, some of our partnerships, so Ministry of Children and Family Development is our partnership with Camp Sensation and our integration program. They provide all the funding to run that program from start to finish. We have the Canucks Autism Network. So again, working with them on that, the camp, the multi-sport camp. They also use our facilities for their skating programs and their swimming programs throughout the year. And then Nanaimo Ladysmith Public Schools, so School District 68. They were fantastic to work with this year in helping us with our facility as well as the busing. It was phenomenal that way. And our opportunities. So moving forward, excuse me a minute. So a new program that we are considering and looking at right now is a concept called the Leisure Buddy program, where this would provide support for people and or of various ages of diverse abilities to contact Parks, Rec, and Culture and be connected with someone that can provide that one-on-one support. So for example, if you have a child of diverse abilities that you would like to, take piano lessons, we can help you, or we would be able to help you with a support person to attend that class with them. So looking into that, currently there's similar programs happening on the mainland. Comox runs a Leisure Buddy program right now. And so just being able to provide that extra support and take down those barriers. And And as we've mentioned, our Camp Sensation and Integration program, so we're looking at running Camp Sensation for a full summer, a full 9 weeks, as well as continuing to run integration the full 9 weeks. So being able to provide that support and camp experience to more children next year. As well as the potential to expand the Canucks Autism Network summer camp. So this year it was 1 week, perhaps next year we can do a couple more weeks. There has also been quite a bit of interest in expanding some of the programs we offer. So we have Camp Sensation, but what can we run during the school year, outside of those school years, that is geared more towards those kids with diverse abilities? One area that we're looking at expanding is more of a teen social club. I've heard a lot of need for something like that. So just some ideas that are going out right now in early stages moving forward. So with that, I will open it up to questions.
Thank you. I have Sean and then Councillor Armstrong.
A huge fan of Camp Sensation as a parent of a child who attended for many years, also very familiar with the panic of standing outside the mailbox, waiting for the application to come, and then pushing people out of the way to get it back in the mail.
Yeah.
Would love to not have to do that, but it's like that with all the camps. Anyway, my point to that is I wonder, because the LEAP card is also very incredibly successful program, and I know many families with kids with diverse abilities do access the LEAP card. I wonder if there's a way to leverage people who have a LEAP card to communicate with those families and offer some form of advanced registration to camps or programs. Because sometimes the timing of the thing, and I love to hear that you were open and you had phone lines and everything was great. And I think often as parents, we just need like another day or 3 days or week or something to just get our lives together to make those phone calls. So if there's a way to offer any sort of advanced registration, I know families would be incredibly grateful for that. And I really like the idea of the Leisure Buddy program. And I wonder if there could also be an opportunity. I know there's many adults with diverse abilities who I work with who want to give back to their community, want to be mentors, want to connect and find meaningful ways to give back. And I wonder if there's opportunities for those individuals. I don't know if those buddies are paid positions or volunteer or a mix of either.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to consider, are those potential jobs or opportunities for adults with disabilities that want to give back to their community? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, 100%. I've heard from some folks out there with diverse abilities that are looking for work and looking at different municipalities and what they're doing. Some of the Leisure Buddy programs are volunteer, run through volunteers. Others are a combination, and others are paid. So it's just, really looking to see what we can do. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Armstrong, then Sarah, Richard, and Sahara.
Actually, Sean asked my question because I'm very interested in that Leisure Buddy program and if it would be volunteer or paid. So I'll follow up later. Thanks.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And just recognizing we do have a couple more items before 6 o'clock, so probably maximum 10 more minutes for this bit. Sarah.
Thank you. I have 3 things, but I'll keep it fast. First of all, just as a poverty advocate, I just want to thank the city for the LEAP program. And, when I work with families, my first question is, are you using the food bank? My second question is, do you know about the LEAP program?
Awesome.
And the fact that Parks and Rec has really reduced the barriers to accessing that program, has expanded it and made it so that you can use it at the museum. Just thank you. It's a gift that I can share with my clients, and I really appreciate it. Number 2, just when you were listing the programs for people with diverse abilities, I'm an autism mom, and my son has attended the Parks and Rec Dungeons and Dragons program that's partnered with the Central Vancouver Island Literacy Group. And I know it's not officially on your roster as being for people, with diverse abilities, but I know for sure that there's certainly several neurodiverse regular participants, and I just wanted to highlight that because it has taught him so much. And he's gone from being struggling with socializing, and now he's getting ready to be a dungeon master. So, so just to add that to what you guys are doing, that has a lot of value. And then just a question with Camp Sensation, is there a threshold where a child is seen as being too high needs to attend? Because I do know one family with an autistic child who was told that they could not attend because of that. So I'm just curious to hear more about what would be seen as too high needs.
Yeah, sure. First, thank you for mentioning our Dungeons and Dragons program. It's a fantastic program, and I see them come. They're right outside my office sometimes, and I know they're having a wonderful time there. The instructors are great. And as for who can what ability can come and what can't, it really, so this was our first year bringing Sensation back. You know, we're somewhat new to it, and just kind of figuring out what our limits are so that we can provide, you know, appropriate care, and so that each child can be successful in our program, was taken into consideration. Lots of things like around bathrooming and those kind of things did come up, where either we weren't comfortable yet with that or had the training yet. A lot of our staff were new to it this year as well. Some of our staff are also still, you know, in high school or in their early 20s. So just really, you know, still working those kind of things out as to how we can provide that support so that everybody is successful, is something that we're still kind of working on. And, you know, those are one of the gaps that we are looking at, how we can address in the future.
So it sounds like to me like toileting is kind of the threshold for.
We did, so yeah, so this year we kind of cut it off at an age, because we did feel if we started to get at a different level, there's, you know, consent and all of those around ages and pairing up to go to the bathrooms. There were some, because we do out trips on top of that, depending on what their bathrooming levels were and what our out trips were, did that work, did that not work, was also considered. So I don't want to say that, you know, we can't allow those kind of things, but I think in the future we're looking at ways that we can either provide more support with either bringing on someone who has more of that training, or how we can work with those families to either come and help us or vice versa, if I answer that, okay?
I think that makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I have Richard, then Sahara, and Nicole, and if you could keep your question brief so we can wrap by 6.
Why are we not sending out these packages electronically or these notices electronically? That was astounding to me, because as a blind individual, getting a paper package in the mail would be like, okay, let me wait 1 month till I have a sighted friend to help me fill this out.
Yeah, so that was a huge barrier. We actually, we're bringing it up with our partners when we meet with them to follow up for the year. And this is something that we would like to see happen, and something that can come back to us electronically so that our inputting, because when we receive it, and a lot of it's handwritten, it's hard for us to go through, and then we also input it into our Excel sheet, and there's a ton of admin work that goes behind the scenes to get a child in. And we also, Zoe also met with every family individually to really get an idea of what the support needs are for those kids. So that's another really big piece of this program. So definitely making an electronic version would just make everybody's lives easier. Yeah. So that's something that we're bringing forward. It's MCFD that does do the sending out. So it's it's kind of falls on them to turn it electronically.
Thank you
So.
for that good question, Richard. Sahara.
Hi. I was kind of piggybacking on that comment as well, just because, yeah, working in learning services, we deal with, the kids from like different designations all across the board. And we're really heavy on with the electronic emails and things like that. And I guess a question just off of that is like, what would be an idea for like bridging the gap almost? I feel like with us in learning services having so much access to all these kids, the social workers, the case managers, itinerant staff, there could be like more of a bridge there, even if it's, going out in our principal's newsletter or, in our meetings we do in the beginning of the year and the end of the year, letting them know if the family needs help with these applications, just kind of those things as well. If the Nanaimo Ladies with Public Schools just kind of provides like space and like buses.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think there's lots of opportunity there to continue building that partnership with the school district and how we can work together and get that word out there. Again, just, we work really closely with some of those social workers, some not as close, but then how are they tied in to working with the school district as well? I think there's definitely opportunity there to connect.
Thank you, Nicole.
So I'll preface my comments by saying that I have worked in Sensation and in integration, and I supported them in getting set up for this summer. And I think that a lot of our questions that have been heard today are actually things to be brought up as far as equity and inclusion with CYSN of MCFD. These, how those went out, who was eligible, all of that, a lot of that was determined by them and the timeline. So I think you guys did a really good job, all things considered. And so I think Sensation will grow back to what it was. And I think another piece of the staffing is when Sensation was running over and over again, there was a succession plan. There were staff that knew these kids. They'd known them since they were 6 and now they were 16. And you also had a lot of staff that had training in lifting and transferring and toileting. And that is something that is going to have to build back now that the pandemic has put that pause on things. So I think that, I don't know when you guys got your funding notification from CYSN. If it's like the CDC's group, it was rather late in the game in the sense. So if we know that it's going to happen, I think that a partnership between the school district, the city, and CYSN and the CDC, we could plan really great summers for these kids and youth in a coordinated way so that kids don't end up, some kids get lots and some kids get none. I'd really like to see that plan work over the winter so that summer is inclusive of more children. But on a separate note, I'm just wondering, would Leisure Buddies apply to swimming lessons and some of the other programs because the perceived barrier to parents, even if it's not actually a policy or a practice of the recreation department, parents don't perceive that they have the option to register their child in swimming lessons. They say, I have to get private lessons.
I'm just going to let them try to answer this because we're short on time.
Yeah, I think that's something to be considered. I think that's something we'd have to bring back to the aquatic manager and what the rules around, the swimming instructors and lifeguarding. But I think that's a great idea, and I've seen a lot of those kids not join the lessons because of that. So something to do.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for the presentation and for all of the work. And it's clear that you're having a great impact and some really good feedback has come from committee members. And it's not everything that the city's in control of. It's certainly working with our provincial partners, but we're going to do it. So thank you.
Thank you.
So Our next agenda item was something that Councillor Armstrong wanted shared, which is the Nanaimo RCMP decal project, and there's information on this in the package, but essentially there's decals that are available for your car and for your home, so that if you do have an individual with special needs or who is neurodivergent, autistic living in your house or in your vehicle, you can identify that so that if you do have interactions with police, they can, there's an example of them posted, then they can kind of be mindful in their interaction with you and reflect on the training that they've received on that. And then last but not least, we are just going to have a quick rundown of how there was some communications that came out from the city on Facebook about the Moby mats at a few of our lakes and beaches. And I did see some committee members in the comments concerned about that because it was relatively short notice saying they were going to be removed after Labor Day. And so we have Charlotte Davis, our manager of parks operations, who's going to just kind of share how that happened and what we are already learning from that.
Thank you, Councillor Eastmore. Yes, there has been a lot of learning about that. Today, I want to explain, kind of some of the thought process on staff's behalf that went into that, but also want to do some listening as well. So it's clear we need to talk about Moby mats. I think they are popular. That's one of the things we heard. It was unfortunate that we communicated out in an insensitive way that they would be removed seasonally. There was no intention to imply that their need was seasonal. So that's something that we really heard from, and we changed the plan there as well. We do have funds for accessibility, and excitingly, we are going to be putting more of those towards Moby mats because we have had great success with them. The one in Departure Bay is there year round, and the ones at the other 3 locations are seasonal mats. I think this year we'll try and push that a little later. Myself, being the operations manager, can get a little bit nervous about our ability to maintain them into the winter seasons. We want to make sure that we've got the staff there that can make sure that they are actually still usable. But I think one of the things we've heard is about the popularity of those mats, and we can trial them a little longer and also potentially in some new locations too.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear that, and it's a combination of factors like needing more Moby mats and then how we communicate the information out. And I also want to thank the committee members who were really proactive about jumping into the comments section and highlighting that this is something that really matters. So yeah, thank you for that. Are there any comments from members that people would like to make at this point, or do Sean?
Just the one, which is that, so it was a big topic of discussion at NACL, many people talking about it, and just confusion about why remove. I mean, if the consideration is that they may not be able to weather the elements later into the year, then why not just remove them all? Why remove some and then not one? So yeah, part of it's a communications issue, but people do see the value in wanting to be able to access those spaces year round. The Moby mats are a big part of that. And I think people would be open to conversations around how to maintain them or how to, what's required throughout the year to keep them. If it requires something extra to be able to do that, I think people are interested in having those conversations. And, it's the nothing about us without us. So that if we're removing them for a reason, that people are participating in being a part of that conversation, so that if they are removed, it's consensus from the community. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to add, there was really good communication out of Parksville when they talked about why theirs were being removed. So I think that's the key messaging, that we need to message out better why we remove them, because they do require maintenance. And if, so I think we heard loud and clear, and I think you'll see it a lot better next year. Thanks.
Yeah, just kudos to the responsiveness of staff on this, because I did feel like it was quickly responded to. Nicole?
Just curious when they go back in.
So the intention is around May long weekend, but I think we can probably bring that a little earlier as well. And so we are going to potentially pilot more, to have more all year round, and just see what happens with them. I think that's something that we've heard here as well, and more locations. So I think it's important that we allow that to happen and see what goes on. It's really nice to hear from the community, although we had to learn it in this awful way, about their popularity, and that's something we want to hear and see where we get.
And Bay, you have a quick question as well?
Yeah, I wondered if there's a more
permanent approach to building perhaps with cement a ramp instead of having that that are constantly getting degraded by the elements and needing repair. But the other thing was just, I don't believe it even indicated in that post that it was a seasonal removal. It just said it was being removed after Labor Day. So I think some people thought maybe they weren't even going to come back, or that it was,
Communication.
Yeah, that's a great point about whether there's a more permanent solution. One of the things I'll say about these Moby mats is they're relatively affordable, they're easy to deploy, they are easy to clean, and we can keep doing it in new locations. Also, it doesn't upset anything environmentally either. So I think we should keep doing more of that and see where we can go.
Awesome.
And I want to say also thank you to Jocelyn Maffin, who we worked with on implementing some of the first ones. She came out and gave them a whirl for us. That was brilliant.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you for your good work in the community. Okay, thank you, Ms. Davis, for your update, and that brings us to the end of the meeting. So if I could have a motion for adjournment, moved by Nicole, seconded by Councilor Armstrong. All in favor? Okay, thank you, everyone, for your time today. Great comments.